Accuse my salesperson of forgery. Awesome. Your service is cancelled. I used to be a sales manager for a B2B services company. We provided a service to business. Unlike a lot of companies, we would not auto-renew a client's service unless they signed a new contract. The contracts were generally for 1 to 3 years. All our contracts were signed on an iPad that recorded the GPS coordinates of where the document was signed, and we emailed the client a copy of the agreement instantly. And in the email, we basically said, if you disagree with this contract or would like to make changes, contact us within 5 business days. If you don't, we will move forward and bill accordingly. In addition, one of the cancellation terms in the contract was dishonesty. If the client could prove we were dishonest, they had a right to cancel without penalty. If the client acted dishonestly, we had the right to cancel their contract with us. There was a client that was actually quite a small account, but always proved to cause a lot of headache for my reps. I remember calling the rep and going over the common issues I've seen with this client, and I stressed to get the signature on the iPad in his office. I also stressed that if the client wanted to cancel, let him cancel, because he's been proven to be very difficult to work with. Salesman went to the sales call, signature was signed. The client's service was executed according to the terms of the contract. 4 months later, I get an email from a customer service rep. The client is claiming that my salesman forged the client's signature. I did my due diligence before calling the client. I checked where the newest contract was signed. It was signed in the client's place of business via the iPad. I compared the signature on the newest contract to the many signatures on the numerous contracts we had on file with the same signer from the client. They were all very close. I also looked at the email that we went to the client right after the contract was signed. The client opened the link to see his contract 65 minutes after the contract was signed and did nothing. Also, the link was open for several minutes. I looked at the client's current billing status. He was 45 days behind. He knew we didn't start charging late fees until 60 days behind, and at 120 days we would begin litigation collection account status. I called up the client, and this is how the call went. Hello, this is Luther from ABC. I was told you are accusing my sales rep of forging your signature on the renewal. Client: yes, I never agreed to pay that much. I never would have. I told him to give me a discount, and I wanted to see it in writing before I signed. B: and did he give you a discount and show it to you in writing? Client: no, he said he had to go talk to his boss, and I never heard back from him. B: okay, and then what happened? Client: well, it all kept up the service, and I noticed on my billing it hadn't gone down but up in cost, and I looked back in my emails and saw the sales rep forged my signature, and that's illegal. Yes, you are right. If the salesperson did forge your signature, that is illegal. Client: well, good to see that we agree on that. After the contract was signed, regardless if the signature was forged or not, you would have gotten an email with a link to the contract asking you to verify that everything is correct, and if it's not, to let us know within 5 business days. Did you get the email? If you did get the email, did you review the contract? Client: well, yes, but I was pretty busy and didn't open the email until recently. I totally get it. We are busy nowadays. So, assuming he did forge the signature, what would you consider an acceptable resolution to this? Would you want to end service with no penalty? Would you like a discount? Client: I would want a discount. And what would you consider an acceptable discount? Client: 3 months of free service. Got it. Well, Mr. Client, I got several problems with your claim that my sales rep forged your signature. And before I fire this salesperson for forgery and offer you a discount, I'd like to see if we can't address those problems. Client: sounds fair. The signature was captured on our iPads, which records the GPS coordinates of where the signature happened. For the GPS coordinates, it happened inside your place of business. Client: well, he knows that, right? Yes, he did. Client: that just means he forged it inside my building. Okay, well, the next issue is that the signature on the renewal contract looks exactly like the previous contracts. Client: he just copied my signature. I know I didn't sign that. Could it be possible someone else in your company signed it? Client: no, everyone here knows I am the only one that gets to sign those contracts. I understand. The next issue I have with your claim is that the link to the contract that was emailed to you was opened 65 minutes after the contract was signed. Client: no, it wasn't. Yes, so it was. The reason why we have you click a link to view the signed contract is so we know if you opened the link or not. Not only that it appears like the link was opened for several minutes, which to me would indicate the person who opened that link reviewed the contract. Also the fact that no one ever responded to the email would indicate to me the person who reviewed the contract was fine. Client, are you accusing me of lying? Yes, and because of that I will be cancelling your service with us effective immediately. How would you like to pay your current balance? Client, you're cancelling my service and want me to pay. Yes, I want you to pay for the services we provided. Client, I'm not going to pay. If you're not going to pay for the services we provided, I'm going to refer you to our collections department, and they will add late fees, and if you don't pay them, they will refer you to our law firm for litigation. Client, we have a contract. You can't just cancel my service. Yeah, actually, I can, since I have good reason to believe you're lying about the accusation that my salesperson forged your signature. Everything I have says you signed it. Our contract states that we cancel your contract for being dishonest, and that's what we are going to do. Client, fuck you, hands up. I referred the client to collections. He eventually paid them without us having to sue him. Honestly, we probably would have just sold his debt to a collection agency due to the dollar amount not being high enough to be worth it to sue. TLDR, client accused my sales rep of forging a signature. I cancelled his agreement with us for lying.
Is it okay if I fire you? Obligatory long-time reader, first-time poster, on mobile, yada yada. This is a story of MC that previous boss had done, but involved me directly, as will be explained. Time frame is early 2000s for reference. In my late high school, early college years, I had a job doing telemarketing work during winter and summer breaks. While it was boiler room cold calling, we primarily were soliciting donations for agencies that had contracted us to do the work, so felt less scuzzy. Think police departments, fire departments, etc. We kept a portion of donations for operating expenses. Everything over a certain threshold went directly to the receiving party. Everybody wins. I enjoyed the job as the scripts were simple. I was allowed to read a book and such between calls. And a number of my friends were also employed there, so we could hang out during lunch breaks. The pay was a decent chunk above minimum wage at that time, so it was a good gig. I also had a knack for it, and at one point was fifth in sales across all their sites they had in operation, second in our building. One summer, while driving to work, my car promptly dies with no warning, and I'm left stranded on the road. As you do in this situation back before cell phones for college students were a thing. I walk to the nearest house and ask to use the phone. I call my dad, who starts driving to get me, and call my work to let them know I'll be late. My boss says fine, and that he will chat with me when I get in. Father shows up with my mother into cars. I take the extra, and he begins the arduous process of towing my car back to the house. This involved tying a rope to the front of the car and to the back of his vehicle and crawling back home so he could fix it himself. I've been in the back car and did not envy my father being in the back car. With only 10 feet of space between him and the car my mother was driving, but I'm off to work. I arrive to work, clock in almost an hour after the start of my shift, and I'm promptly told by the front receptionist that my boss would like to see me in his office. So I head on back. Beginning details completed. Cue the start of the MC story. My boss and I have always had a good rapport. I'm a good worker, get good reviews, and he and I have some similar interests outside of work we can chat about occasionally. When I arrive in his office, he's shuffling some papers around and has laid out a few documents facing me, as close as I can recall. This is the conversation that followed. Boss, hope everything worked out with the car. Glad to have you here. Couple things I need to discuss with you. First of all, as I'm sure you are aware, being more than 30 minutes late to work is considered a Class C violation. 3 classes, from C to A, C being the least egregious, if insufficient time is given prior to the occurrence. This is your first violation, so I'd like to talk to you about what happens next. I'm sweating at this point. I've never even been talked to about being out of order on anything while working here, and getting my first violation scared the heck out of me. So I'm sitting there white-faced, and he continues. Vice, no official write-up or anything occurs for a first violation, or even the first few Class C violations. But it is manager's discretion on the punishment depending on past behaviors. Now, you are a good employee, and I've put into corporate a few times to give you a raise. But because you only work during your school breaks, it is denied as you aren't considered full-time. So the papers I have here are your termination papers and an offer letter I'd like to extend to you to hire you back on again. So in short, before I file these, I'd like to ask, is it okay if I fire you? So we go through the process of him firing me, which then allowed him to extend an offer to me to hire me at roughly a 25% increase in pay, since he could justify to corporate the bump as he was hiring someone with experience. In talking with him, he let me know it was something he occasionally did to the high school and college workers, to get around the corporate's policy of not allowing raises to people that didn't work 1,000 plus hours in a year. It was his own way of being maliciously compliant with a policy that didn't allow him to reward some people that he thought deserved it. He had been apparently waiting for me to do something that he could technically fire me for. The way their back-end systems work, it wouldn't even show up as a break in service, since the firing and hiring happened on the same day. And since I never worked more than the minimum 1,000 hours each year, I didn't have any tenure or anything to be worried about losing. The laugh he and the receptionist had when he walked me back to the front to introduce her to the new employee was enjoyable, and I've had a fun story to tell ever since. TLDR, boss fires me for minor infractions so he can then rehire me at a higher rate of pay. Edit. Thank you everyone for the comments and awards. I had to Google what the awards meant, as I've never made a post or comment that has had more than a few upvotes in the past. I've been doing my best to keep up with comments and thanking the award people individually. But I know there are many I missed or just didn't have the stamina to keep up with. I also wanted to answer a few commonly asked questions. Why do the fire department and police department need more money? This was more for affiliated agencies and charities. Think the firefighters' boot drive they do every year. They don't keep your change you toss into the boot. It goes to a charitable cause. Did your dad fix the car? What was wrong with it? I'm not a car person, so don't know what was wrong with it. But yes, my dad was able to fix it. 3, do you keep in touch with the boss? This was close to 20 years ago, and unfortunately, I don't keep in touch with very many people from my hometown, including this wonderful man. As I had heard, he was still working there 4 to 5 years after I had left, and it was still a great place to work. Many of your comments had me laughing, and I've enjoyed responding to them throughout the day and into the wee hours of the morning last night, and they are still coming in. Thank you all again for this enjoyable experience. I'm glad you had fun with my little retelling of years gone by.
Check out my other marvelous videos.